Transverse pulse is when you move the slinky to the left or to the right. At the top of the curve of the wave, the coils are spread out, and at the bottom of the curve of the wave, they're close together. The shape of the pulse appears to change as it travels along the slinky. Friction changes the shape of the pulse because it begins to lose energy as the speed, but the speed stays the same while the shape changes. Longitudinal pulse is when the wave is going forward and backward, so in this motion as opposed to this motion. The coils become close together as the wave goes through it, and when it passes through, they spread out. So here comes the wave, and it goes close, and it spreads out. The difference between what we observed with the transverse and longitudinal was for transverse, the entire circle of the coil does not touch at the same time, but longitudinal, the whole circle does in the coil. For transverse pulse, the coils touch at the top and the bottom of the curve, they touch at the bottom of the curve, and they separate at the top. Longitudinal pulse doesn't have curves, so they all touch as the wave goes through it. The initial amplitude of the wave depends on how fast or how slow the pulse is sent through the slinky. And then the faster it is, the smaller the size, and the slower it is, the bigger the size of the wave. The speed of the pulse is dependent on the amplitude of the pulse as well. The wave speed was different for different frequencies because when less cycle passes by a given location, this means that the wave speed slowed down, and vice versa. And then as for the distance, that had a big effect on the pulses. When the distance was shorter, like 2 meters or 3 meters as opposed to 6 meters, the pulse was a lot slower, and the longer the distance was, the faster the pulse was, because it had a lot less tension, so it went faster. Or the more tension it had, the faster it went. The amplitude, however, was not affected. The different tensions affect the different mediums, like going from a solid and a liquid to a gas. So in a solid, the tension is, there's not a lot of tension because they're all really close together, and in a liquid there's a little bit more because they're not as close together, and then a gas, they're super spread apart, so that'd be more tension. And yeah.